Welcome to another episode of Is This Real Deep Dive, where we explore the mysteries of the unknown and delve into the world of stories that make us question the world around us. I'm your host, JC3. Today, we have a chilling tale that takes us back to a haunted house filled with unexplained phenomena and a cemetery that holds eerie secrets. Our guest, Elena, has experienced things that defy logic, growing up in a house that seemed to have a life of its own. From strange noises to shadowy figures, Elena's sensitivity to the afterlife has given her a unique perspective on the supernatural. Join us as we uncover the spine-tingling events that shaped her childhood and explore the haunted grounds that became an unsettling playground for her and her sister. Get ready for a story that will make you question what is real and what lies beyond.
Welcome everybody. I am JC3. I am a host of JC3 Unfiltered, or this can be a Is This Real Deep Dive, but we have with us Elena here, and we have Pope Tony here. Elena, thank you for joining with us. I've been chomping at the bit for this interview for a while because of the experiences that you have told me, and I wanted Anthony to hear about these these experiences that you've shared with me before about your life and your place growing up, because there's a lot of people in our podcast booth, that we range from total believers to nonchalant believers to straight up atheists. So we have people who will sit there and not believe in the paranormal or not believe in this or need proof. I think Anthony's in the mid-shift of it. Anthony will sit there and say that he can believe some things, believe not some things, where I'm all for, I 100% believe in it. So I wanted to get your interview done because I think the stuff that you've the stuff that you've told me over the phone before is something that you can't really, to me, you can't make up,
Yeah, I think I fall in the middle spectrum between you both, because I don't I don't know how to explain it. I didn't really believe things until my family opened up about it after we moved out, and we started having these similarities where we weren't, you know what I'm saying? We never talked about it because we just kind of, I guess my mom was super religious, so she kind of just, in the, ghost sense, it wasn't a thing for her. So she would never speak about it. And then when she started admitting things that were identical to things that I used to admit, and she was like, yeah, I just didn't want to scare you, or I didn't really want to talk about it. And then my sister was like, oh, that happened to you guys, the same thing happened to me in this situation. Then it started getting more validity for me, because I thought, it was my imagination. Everyone's your brain's a powerful thing. You can come up with these things, and it just the cousin from Ecuador, it just kind of there's too much that was not talked about between certain people that all matched up in the end. And we had this whole day-long conversation about it, and it was intense.
All right, so we'll get right into it then. Can you describe the events or experiences that you had? Did I lose you there?
Yeah, I'm trying to think chronologically.
Oh my God.
So, as a kid, most people have imaginary friends and stuff. I was scared of certain areas of my house, and then it kind of started there, which my mom thought was odd because it just didn't really make sense. It was my grandparents' room when they would stay at the house. They were from Florida, and it had nothing scary in it. It was just a side room right off of the living room, where we all hung out all the time, but I refused to go in there. There was a room downstairs in the basement where I refused to go down and go in that one little side room, which I'm not really sure what its function was. But then later on, my cousin was supposed to stay with us from Ecuador. She wouldn't go in there. And my sister just avoided the basement altogether. And it was just a vibe at first. And then things started happening kind of like things that weren't in one place would end up in another place, and it would get blamed on like me or my sister or stuff like that. But then I think I told you this, like one night we used to collect these American Girl dolls, so they were everywhere, and of course, and I eventually like had to lay all my dolls down because their eyes would blink. Like, you know how they blink, but like,
Yeah.
You know, they started blinking on their own at night, and it freaked me out so much. And my mom was like, "Why the heck are all your dolls like flat, like in your on your counter?" And I was like, "They keep blinking at night." And she's like, "That's not funny." And I'm like, I don't think it's funny at all. She put them in the attic, and then we never found them again, which kind of freaked me out a little bit more. So like in that sense, and like stuff like that would happen. You remember Furbies?
Yes.
We had one where it wouldn't shut up. We pulled the batteries out and it just kept going. We threw it. We got so scared. My sister went down to the basement, put it under there was a couch down there, and we could hear it from upstairs. And the batteries were out. Like my mom checked it too. She was like, maybe there's like a malfunction. I mean, she was just she's a very rational person, very like, I guess, you know, trying to figure it out. She's like, well, potatoes make electricity. Maybe there's something in the air. I'm like, what? Like, she was just trying to like come up with something. She's like, let's just throw it out. And then we just, like, those things kind of kept happening. Then it kind of escalated into visually seeing things or hearing things. So one time when my mom, this she admitted later, she was like, a lot of the times I'd be home and you girls were at school, and I would hear like laughing and like the door slamming, and I'd get pissed off and go like, you know, girls, stop slamming the doors. And then I'd remember you guys were at school and there's no kids in the house. There's no one else but me. She was a single mom. And she was like, so that freaked me out. And I'd go check and see and stuff, and you guys obviously weren't there. And for me, that was a big thing because my mom is the kind of person that was like hardcore, like just, you know, it's not happening. Like she's very just, she never wanted to talk about it or like breathe air into that at all. So it was like, that was one thing I think that really just kind of bothered her, because she wasn't sure if it was us. She was like, one time I chased, you know, what I thought was your sister, and we like to hide under the beds, of course, like, and I'm like a horror movie. I was like, I wouldn't look under the bed. But of course she was like, I chased, you know, what I thought was your sister under the bed, realizing that, you know, she had like, I guess, karate or something that day. She wasn't supposed to be home. She wasn't home. And when she looked under the bed, there was nothing there. But she's like, I saw something get under the bed. And she's like, I didn't want to tell you girls that, because if I said that to you girls at that age, you guys would not have slept. And I was like, yeah, that's usually, that'd be something.
You say that to me at this age and I'm not standing in that house. Like, that's
yeah. But the thing is that, like, what I started thinking, because it was more just like messing with us, was that, you know, once our nanny started living with us, she's very kind of believes in ghosts, and like she said that she claims that she's been choked by ghosts and all this other stuff, and she's South American. They're very different kind of culture with ghosts, and like she's really, I guess, you know, the whole egg cracking and cleansing the body thing, like she's very, it's almost a type, like it would be seen as a type of witchcraft, which did not help when she moved in with us. You know what I'm saying? Like, the second she started bringing that into the house, it escalated, and the, like, whatever was there let you know if it didn't like someone, you were aware. Like, my mom's cousin came from Ecuador and stayed in that grandparents' room that I didn't like to go in, and he had nightmares every night about like his mother just hanging from the ceiling, and he's like, I was awake, I could see her and stuff like that. And like the other time he had a different experience, only he just ran out and he went to a hotel. He didn't say anything why he never came back to our house. And we didn't tell him anything because we don't introduce the house. Like, we never introduce it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, by the way, it might have some situations going on in here. So
Yeah, you don't want to sit there and
so strange. And my mom's like, I'm gonna sleep in that room and prove that there's nothing like wrong here. And she had the same like type of experience, and she's like, she won't tell us what the nightmare was, but it was enough to shake her. And she's not someone who gets shaken very easily.
Yeah,
She's
that religious core, right?
Yeah, like, she's not a kind of person that, like, she wouldn't even talk about it, and still won't talk about it. She's like, it was so horrible, like, that I just can't speak about it. But I was like, maybe it's because you challenged it in a way, like, oh, like, nothing's gonna happen here. And she's like, but I know that there's a man in there. And I used to always think that there was like this soldier in there, and my mom just thought it was just made up. But I would draw a lot and stuff like that, so I'd draw pictures, and it was a soldier, like Civil War era. And this is when we started realizing, like I had told you, that we bike rode, like, kind of like behind our house there's a street. And we didn't know this, but there is a privately owned cemetery called the Van Houten Cemetery. You could actually, like, look it up. And we couldn't read the gravestones, but we started hanging out in there, and we realized you could see the house perfectly from the cemetery, but you can't see the cemetery from the house. It made no sense. Like, we go to our backyard, try to look for it, like, we know where it was, like, positioned. You couldn't see it, but then from the cemetery, you could just see my backyard, the back of the house, the whole yard, and everything. And it was like, it was just weird that we couldn't figure out why we could, you know what I'm saying? Like, it would make sense to be able to see one way, not the other way. But then we stopped going that after a while because my sister started taunting, I guess, and, like, kind of, I don't remember what she did exactly. She was kind of just like, let's just say it was like not respecting the grave sites. And she was like, they can't do anything or whatever. And then she got scratched on her legs. And she was bleeding, and she was like, she just left me there. She just left.
She just ran.
I was like, what the? So I'm standing there, and I'm like, you know, you get that feeling like something's like watching you, and it kind of just, you just like, it's like a shiver almost, like,
yeah, you got that
something just
like,
did not want us
that
there.
adrenaline.
Yeah, and after that, the family actually ended up locking it down, and having like someone there that would come and check it every once in a while, because they noticed that we were hanging out in there. I mean, and it's weird because if you visit it, it's literally like houses are right, like it's just there, but like it's literally like feet from 3 different houses. Like, there's 2 houses on the sides of it. It's just covered by like bushes basically, and it's still owned by that family, and they still own a piece of property down the road. They used to own that whole area. So it kind of was weird that way.
Quick question though.
Yeah.
Did you ever get like the history of your house? Like, any background about any like Civil War people that might have lived on the property?
So the thing is that that whole area where my house was built and around it was all owned by the Van Houten family. My house was built in 1991, I believe. It was a relatively new house. Before that, Franklin Lakes was mostly farmland and just privately, like, owned by families, like big, you know, families like that. And then during the Civil War and stuff like that, it was like a stopping point before the Hudson. Like, there's a house that George Washington used that's still there. You can visit it.
Yeah.
And then basically just like it was a strategic point for military kind of things. But there was Native Americans that did live there prior, but their history has kind of been wiped out. In a way, the only way it's still kind of around is just that they named a lot of the streets, the schools, and the towns by all the native, like Yapo Road and like, you know what I'm saying, like Wyckoff, Lenape Court, like they just full out named it everything after it. But like there's not much record on that. There's a lot more on the military usage of the land, and the private usage of the family is limited because it's like private. Like there's public record stuff, but it's mostly just that they own the land and they lent it to those military, kind of like when it was wartime, obviously, like people lived in barracks and stuff like that around the area, but they didn't, as far as what they did privately, they're a very like oddly private family, like in that sense. Like the Van Houtens they're still around in Franklin Lakes. Their descendants still own the land that they owned before, including the cemetery, and they still bury people there as recently as like 2 years ago. Like they still bury their family members there.
That's interesting.
So
see, like, because
they like to keep it private, because the thing is, like, you know, a lot of people want to visit the area. They go to like the Ackerman house and stuff like that, and there's a lot of those state, you know, like the blue signs, like there's a ton in that area, so they don't want to make their family cemetery into a, you know, stopping site.
It's like they don't want it to be like a tourist attraction. I get that. You know, and I understand that too, because me, Anthony, and my father a couple times during the summer have gone to a lot of these you would pass them without even noticing them, like cemeteries that are just down these roads. Like if you didn't know, like, okay, you have to go up these set of stairs over to the right, down this hill, then you wouldn't even see it. Like I've been to a couple of them in North Jersey this summer so far, so that's one of those things where it's like, and they're all Civil War era, you know, sites. There's a lot of them up in North Jersey. And so far, do you have any questions? Just listening. All right, so real quick then, when did you start really sensing or seeing, like, did you ever see like full-bodied apparitions or anything like that, like yourself?
Mine is that they like to get me alone, which bothered me. Like for some reason they target me more when I was alone, when they would at least show up. You know, it got to the point where my mom at 4 years old took me to a psychiatrist because she was like, she's seeing these things, she's having night terrors, she's sleepwalking, she's talking to the wall, and she was concerned at one point, and she was like, it's not an imaginary friend, because it's not like, she doesn't treat it like a friend, she's afraid, and you know, she's screaming hysterically, and I don't know what's wrong with her. And from like a standpoint, if she's thinking of it like a logical, and she's a doctor, so she just, you know, nothing, like, it's everything that's what she could see and touch is like what's real.
Very rigid scientific type.
But I would get like a lot of like faces, not usually full body, so it would be like just their face, and if they were wearing a hat or something, or their hair, and then they would disappear. Or like on my bed, I remember distinctly, because I would just freeze, is that my feet would be, you know, like your feet are on the end of the bed and someone sits on the bed and it kind of sinks in. And I would just feel like that pressure, and like it was heavy enough that like my legs would go down, and I was like, I would just not move, and that sort of thing.
That's terrifying.
The doors would open when I was alone. One time I was in the kitchen because I thought that, you know, that nothing's going to happen in such a, because the kitchen was like the hub for everybody to kind of, everyone got home, filled out, stuff like that. And, you know, at one point, I felt, I don't know how to explain the feeling, but it's just like an uneasy, like cold, like not a happy feeling. It's like if you know someone doesn't want you there, and like you get a feeling like, you know, you should probably so I stood my ground. I just kind of stayed, because everything I read and everything I was kind of like on my own in my own research was kind of like, just don't give it any leeway. And so I just closed my eyes and I sat at the countertop, and everything was fine until I heard this loud, like, all these loud noises, like creaking, and I'm like, just don't turn. Like, something just told me to just like, don't turn around. And I was like, I'm gonna turn around. And I turned around, and all of my cabinet doors were open in the kitchen. And I took my dog and I ran outside, and I was outside in the thunderstorm. When my mom got home, she's like, what the hell are you doing out here? And I'm like, I couldn't even speak. I was just babbling. And she's like, get in the house. Like, what are you doing out here in the thunderstorm? And then she's like, why would you leave all these cabinets open? This is ridiculous. And she, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I just couldn't even articulate it at that point, because I don't know why it bothered me so much, but it just, that kind of thing just always kind of like irked me. And the closet doors opening would just freak me out. And at one point I would put stuff in front of the doors so that they wouldn't open. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you'd have to really because they were like foldable almost ones. So it would have to fold like this to open. So I put like textbooks and stuff in front of that, because then that would mean it'd have to push the textbooks out of the way. And then I'd hear the sliding, and I was like, I just wouldn't look. I would just, covers over my head. I'd have to sleep with the lights on. They basically, they didn't know what to really do with me in terms of like the psychiatrist. They're like, she's fine. Like, mentally she's all there, so there's nothing wrong with her. Maybe she's just anxious that you're not home as much. And I'm like, that's not it. But like, no one, you know, they couldn't do anything for that. So, but at 4 years old and at 7 years old, they took me because the school was getting concerned at one point because of the same like kind of reasons. Like, I'd be like, leave me alone, like this kind of thing. And like,
so my question for you, because if you go through steps of possession, if you believe in that, do you think you were on that route of maybe possibly being possessed? Because if you go through the steps, I think it is at one point it's isolation, and then they try to basically isolate you from your family, make you think you're going crazy, and then you're the only one around, so they have you by themselves, and then they want to infiltrate, they want to possess you. Do you believe you were on that road? Do you think it was that sort of, or was it like a friendly ghost, or do you believe it was that sort of type of haunting or demonic or something like that?
So that's the confusing part about it, is that they weren't always bad. It's like there was good and then there was bad ones. And even my mom said, she's like, the ghosts miss us. And I'm like, why would you say that? Like, randomly the other day, she's like, I think they miss us. I don't, I think they really do. I'm like, okay. I didn't know what to say to that, but she had mentioned to me, she's like, what gave me comfort was basically like, if they were gonna kill us or hurt us, I mean, we lived there for quite some time, they would have done something already. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I was pretty wrecked, but like, I guess no one really noticed. They chalked it up to me wanting my mom home more, so I was coming up with these things. And I'm like, why would that make you come home more? She's not a comforting mother. Let's just put that out there. Like, her personality she doesn't hug. Like, I tried to hug her one time and she literally went like this and like hit me in the throat. Like, so it wasn't nothing like that. But so I think there was like a kind of like, there was friendly ones and then the unfriendly ones. And I think that they constantly were like almost fighting in that sense, because sometimes I would feel like that. Like I remember having this really horrible dream, and I can remember it vividly today, and that freaks me out because normally I usually forget my dreams unless I'm writing them down. But I was being tortured by this demon, and like, but everything felt so real, and I was like 7. So I didn't have a conceptual idea of hell, of demons, like yet. To me, it was a little guy with the red horns and the tail. Like, it was very basic, but it was so vivid and like so much like what I would think of now that I've seen horror movies and stuff. Like, we weren't even allowed to watch Rugrats because my mom thought Angelica was too mean. Like, we had no conceptual idea. Yeah, she censored everything. So like, I had nowhere to pull that from, and that really freaks me out because like that sort of thing. And then I think as I got more towards like, you know, middle school and stuff like that, I can totally see where I felt like I was going in that direction. But again, I think it was like it was a weird push and pull. And another thing just like to mention was that like around 4 years old when I started experiencing this, which I think might tie into it. I had asked you about this, I wasn't sure. I had died when I was 4. Because my mom wasn't paying attention at a pool party. Well, that sounded bad. She was with friends, but I was walking by the pool, didn't know how to swim. I drowned. I died. Someone noticed, and he resuscitated me, but I think I was like dead for like 5 minutes. After that was when I just kind of like started having those kinds of situations, because before that, you know, but then again, before 4 years old, there's not much, you know.
I mean, you're not really sensing on it.
Also born not breathing, so I was like 3 months premature. Like my mom said they brought me home in a shoebox. Like after a month in the hospital. Like I was like a pound. Like so everyone thinks that all ties into it, like in a way.
Well, do you believe it though? Like do you believe that since like all that effectiveness and you're dead for 5 minutes, you're premature, all that, do you think a part of your spirit, if you believe in spirits and stuff like that, was left behind or tied you to the other side, if you will, or the afterlife, or whatever you want to call it?
God, I hope not. But because honestly, I'd rather just, you know, I'd rather be in one place. But like, I think if anything, it just thinned the veil for me, if that makes sense. Like, I can access it, I don't, because when I've tried to kind of, you know, I get answers from not always friendly things, and I don't want to mess with any of that shit. So I prefer to just stay away from that sort of thing. But sometimes I can't really help it, and it just kind of, I don't know, like sometimes it's involuntary, but most of the time that happens, it's like a subconscious kind of thing. Like I'll just kind of shove it under because I don't want to entertain it, because I'm scared that it'll just become involuntary. Like, you know, you see people on TV shows or in general, just, you know, like I see dead people all the time. I can't help it. I don't want to ever get to a point where I can't, you know what I'm saying? Like
where it just doesn't stop.
Living people are enough for me. I have patients. Those are enough. I don't need other people, you know what I'm saying, like bothering me regular time.
So when was your like your most recent or your last experience with the ghosts of your house?
So when we were moving out, I remember when we were leaving, it was like, I hate to say it like it, because honestly, like I do think some of them were there to protect us, but or ended up kind of adopting us in a way. It was weird. It was it was a weird situation, but like when we left, it was like sad, but also like we felt like this weight like lifted off of us in a way. Like it felt so different being anywhere else, but we got so used to how it felt at the house with like all the energy, like I guess the energy that was there kind of would feel different. And this was like anyone who visited was kind of would feel something, but like couldn't really explain it, and depending on, you know, the person, it would vary. I guess so like the cousin that I was telling you about from Ecuador that came when she was let me see, I don't know, she was born 2000. Oh, I don't know, she's a little younger than me, and she started describing the same things that I had seen, and it freaked me out, and she would refuse to sleep downstairs, so she would drag a mattress next to my bed, and but she would describe things to a T, and it would freak me out because I always was like, okay, it's fake, and I said it enough times that I believed it. And then when she reiterated it and described it so like vividly, like what I saw, like the little girl's the only one that I saw pretty freaking vividly. But I mean, I'm very wary about any kind of spirits or things that present themselves as children. I think, you know, it could be a slippery slope, and especially because that was the one that was in the basement in that tiny side room. Just didn't, she never sat well with me. She was always friendly, but there was just, it was like a red flag, just red flags everywhere. I was like, I kind of would just try to steer away from it.
The thing with that is apparently there's a lot of stories like that of children, little girls, little boys, or something like that, being presented as children to get the approval or attention, or get the in for little kids, the people who can actually see them. Because most adults in a lot of the world, they're not seeing ghosts, they're not sensitive to ghosts. I think more children are more sensitive to spirits in the afterlife than we think. I think the same way of that with animals. I think animals have a sense of the afterlife or spirits or anything like that more than anything else. And I think they intentionally placate to little kids as other little kids. So it's like, oh, we want to get the trust of this kid so we can sit there and infiltrate and hopefully possess these people that we're going after.
I just thought about this too. I hadn't thought about this earlier. What's weird about that is that the only one that my mom says that she's seen is the little kid. And that's weird because she's an adult. Anyone who's seen anything like vividly, like she must have been pretty strong or something, because she was the only one that was able to reach anybody, and like, you know, you could hear her laughing, and like that's creepy, but like also just she never hurt us, so it was kind of weird. Like I don't know even now how I feel about that, because like what was the end game? And I think like that's why my mom's like, maybe that's why she just wanted to be part of our family and just kind of stayed around for that.
Yeah.
We don't have answers, so we kind of just sometimes when we bring it up. And my mom was here the other day. I was going to ask her and I totally forgot. I was like, I'll ask her the next time I see her, because I was like, I'm going to slip it in there casually and see what she has to say. But she basically was just like, that's the one thing that she mentioned that she really like could hear, see, and like her footsteps, giggling, the hiding under the bed, you know what I'm saying, like anything that she experienced usually tied around playful. Which is weird, because you know that was something that if it was targeting just children, it wouldn't make sense to, like, my mom was home alone, but like You know what I'm saying? Like it just
Oh yeah, I
that
do.
kind of just that confuses me a little bit, and just actually makes me feel a little bit better about the fact that maybe it's not something evil, because my mom again was very religious and just like not, she was not
Yeah.
gonna have it. I
Well,
mean,
I do think as human beings, with things that we don't know, or things that might be too far out of the capability of our knowledge, we try to generalize in a sense that makes us comfortable because the truth might be too uncomfortable for us or too jarring for us. So I think that's definitely something that I can get behind as far as we want to see her as, or these spirits. Anybody who sees these spirits that placate themselves to children, or to, we see as children, as playful, as they're not evil, they're not something demonic or anything like that, because obviously nothing, I'm assuming nothing really happened evilly, like nobody was physically harmed in your house, or anything like that.
physical harm happened. That apparently and this was my mom saying it because I never knew about it, but she said that one of the male ghosts in our house did not like other males, and anytime like a male relative would sleep over, they would be leaving in the middle of the night, and I'd just be like, it became normal, so I just kind of like didn't think much of it, but it never occurred to me why that was. But she said that basically like she's like, anytime any of my cousins come over and stuff, they would have to get a hotel because they wouldn't last the night. And I'm like, well, that's something I didn't know. But then again, like obviously as kids, my mom wouldn't let us have boys sleep over. Like
Yeah,
stuff.
and being a religious parent, she probably didn't have that even when you were a teenager also.
No. But it was just like torturing, like in the sense of like kind of just to spook them almost, like just didn't want them there. And she said that she saw it later on as like a protective thing, but again, that's something I didn't really, because I didn't go anywhere near that area. I didn't mess with him at all. He was always just kind of like this, like sometimes he'd be standing in that doorway and I wouldn't want to watch TV in the living room, and that would be about it. Like he just had this presence about him that he just filled a room with. So like if he was in a room, it's like, this is my room right now, like I like, get out, like you're not staying here right now. And I'd just be like, yep, then I'd just leave. But he never went upstairs, so it always kind of felt safer up there. Little girl was like free reign the whole friggin' house. But she would, but like if you like, not looking for her, but like her main, like I guess where she, maybe not where she came from, but like I guess where her, I don't know how to explain it, like her main area was that downstairs basement room on the side, and that was kind of weird because that's like that's underground.
Do you
a little weird.
My question also, and this will probably be one of the last questions for this interview, because I do want to get more stories and stuff from you, and maybe things that you and I can react on, because I do enjoy listening to your take on things. So I definitely want to do more interviews with you about certain legends and stuff around New Jersey, because obviously we're both from Jersey here. The last question I do have: Do you know anything about the cemetery and who's buried in that cemetery? As far as the little girl might be buried in there or anything like that? Do you think it could be a possibility of something like that?
See, the archives for that are mainly like, again, it's the family's private archives. So other than reading we used to take paper because you could barely read some of them, and just kind of go over it with pencil. A lot of them were just some like Civil War like people. A lot of them had the same names, just different years. It was like but nothing that I can remember. As far as a name, we would never got anything from either of them with a name. It's just what they look like. So like, I think I told you I'm gonna try to draw her and stuff like that. And I can even ask my cousin as well, and the babysitter, because she's like, she got the brunt of a lot of activity, and she wouldn't talk about it because it scared her a lot. But she stayed in the basement. It's a finished basement, so like she stayed down there and had a bathroom and a kitchen and all that. And she was burning sage and doing all this, but again, it's like a version of not Hispanic witchcraft per se, but like it would be viewed that way, basically.
Kind of like religious.
Like it was almost like
prayer.
It might have been seen by the spirits as trying to expel them, which did not sit well. So she got a lot of the nastier kind of activity that I got some of it, but most of it was just because I was scared and a kid. I don't know if it was meant to frighten me like it did, but it did frighten me. So, but it's weird because sometimes her daughter, like, I'll be like, remember when I had to drag a mattress upstairs to my room because you couldn't sleep down there? And some of that she doesn't remember because she was so young. She's like, I don't remember that part, but she remembers other things where, like, she's like, well, but this is in Ecuador, so I'm like, that doesn't really tie into here. But like, I remember one time she was, her sisters actually witnessed it as well. She has 3 sisters. She was dragged across the room by this dark figure. I'm like, okay, well, that's not what's over here. But she's always been super sensitive to things like that. So when she came here, she picked up on everything at the house very vividly. So I'm gonna ask her about that as well.
Yeah, I would love to know more.
Yeah, I want to know more about the land as well, because I know it's just kind of, it wasn't, again, a lot of it was farmland. Before that, it was just owned by all these like really important families that had to do with like the politics of the time.
Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of stuff happened there. A lot of negative stuff happened there. I know that for sure. And there's just a lot of stuff to look into in this area. I mean, even the, what are the albino people like in the woods in Ringwood?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different stories we're going through. In fact, me and my brother came up with something that we're going to do. We're going to revive or explore in New Jersey, but we're going to go to these haunted places in which we found and just film a little bit of it and then talk about it on with a podcast setting. So when we start doing that, I'll definitely pitch you in because I know you probably want to go to these places also.
I do.
And experience that sort of situation. So I just want to thank you for this interview because I think we're both getting a little tired here. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you for joining us on this eerie journey into the unknown with Elena. Her experience reminds us that the world is full of mysteries, some of which may never be fully understood. Whether it's a haunted house or shadowy cemetery, these places hold more than just memories. They hold stories that chill us to the bone and make us wonder about the unseen forces that surround us. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the supernatural, be sure to subscribe and share your thoughts. And don't forget, there is a new season of Is This Real podcast that has just dropped. Tune in for new episodes every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, available on all major podcast platforms and on YouTube. Stay tuned for more spine-tingling takes, and remember, sometimes that the things that go bump in the night are more than just the figment of our imagination. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and stay curious. Is this real? You decide.